Hello and welcome to Mostly Minnesota Podcast Edition. I'm Ann Tracy. I'm here with my co-host,
Heather Baker.
Yeah, and we are here with Richard Medek. I'm going to call it Richard Medek Revisited. How are you?
I'm doing really good, thanks.
Good. We had so much fun talking to you not that long ago that we said, let's do it again.
I know, I'm flattered and and completely flabbergasted too that you guys want to be back to keep talking and talk about everything. But thanks for having me back. It's going to be fun, I hope.
Yeah. Well, you can't assume people listened to the earlier version, but we talked just to super catch people up in the last conversation, we talked a lot about how good music is like swinging for the home runs.
Yeah, the home runs.
I'm definitely sort of a baseball person. Swinging for the home run. There's a better way to say that.
Swinging for the fences.
Swinging for the fences. Yeah. Thank you. I will tell my dad. Yeah, tell my dad not to listen to this one. And then a lot about kind of just the selfishness of playing music and art.
Right. Yeah, the good kind. The good kind of
selfishness. Yeah. We talked a little bit about some of the folks that you played with. I remember, well, I think it was Teddy Morgan who would talk about swinging for the fences, as I recall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We thought, we want to hear more about some of your music stories.
Sure. Yeah. What would you like to know?
It's funny because of course I'm tempted to say, who's your favorite? But I have 3 children and you never ask who's somebody's favorite,
Sure.
I would never, ever do that. But I'm just trying to think of what would be a fun way to ask.
Okay. I have a favorite. I could just tell you right now. It's super easy.
All right, then let's.
I have a definite favorite, but we haven't done it in so long. I feel like it's in the past, but in my heart it lives on. And that would be a band called Winthrop, which is a complete side project that we haven't done in probably 10 years. I don't know. It's been a really long time. But the gist of it is it's just like one of the few music things that myself and a few friends of mine do when the time is right, and we just all get together and we fuck around for a good 2 hours or until the hard drives run out. We record everything, and then we listen back to it, and there's a lot of wine drinking involved, and usually there's some kind of barbecue happening, and the music is for absolutely no one. It's just for ourselves. That's all we do. It's like an outlet is what it is. But the band is myself and my good friend Teddy Morgan and a buddy of mine who lives in Nashville named Carl Bramel. He is the long blonde-haired guitar player for My Morning Jacket, is where most people know him from. And then that's like the core group, and then every time we do it, we invite little guest stars to come in, and they say, well, what are you going to do? And we say, well, we're going to Winthrop, and it's going to be really fun. And we get together and we do that for hours, and then it's exhausting, and we have music to listen to for the next 6 months. And that's absolutely by far my favorite music project that I've ever done, because it's so much fun and there's no pressure involved, and it's just for nobody. It's music for no one except for ourselves. And there's a lot to say about that. But we've all been busy. And ever since I moved to Minneapolis from Nashville, which is where I used to live, we haven't really done it. So we talk about it every now and then. Like every 3 years, one of us is like, hey, we should Winthrop again. We should do it Winthrop. And then we never do. So I know that's a ridiculous concept. It has no relation to anybody. But by far, it's my favorite music I've ever worked on. It's totally great. Yeah.
Is that a music? I appreciate it being for you, but is it available anywhere?
Oh no, it's nowhere. Yeah, it's on hard drives. It's on my iTunes. We don't call it that anymore. What do we call it? We call it Apple Music. Whatever it is, it's on those things. But we've never released it. I mean, the truth is, like, once we thought we should do something with this, or we should like utilize this creativity or some sort of monetary value. And it turns out it just didn't make it as fun. So we just don't. Yeah. So it's nowhere. I have the domain name still. It's which is winthorpesounds.net, but there's nothing on it. So yeah, I got nothing for you guys. It's a band that no one's ever heard and no one really cares about, and we haven't done it in 10 years. But to this day, if someone asks like, hey, what's your favorite music you do? I'm like, oh, it's Winthorpe. Yeah, by far, just making elephant noises and random rock and roll sounds for a couple of hours, trying to make beautiful songs out of them.
How did this begin? What concoction?
Okay.
What sort of beverage started this situation you have?
I just gotta tell you, I'm totally gonna tell you the story, but if all we did is like just talk about projects I had 10 years ago that I thought were fun, I'll totally do that all night long. So the deal is my friend Teddy, this guitar player, and myself, we moved to Nashville. At the same time, I met him in Tucson, Arizona, where we used to live. And then we moved to Nashville. And in Nashville, he bought a house that had a little recording studio. And we got together a bunch to just play in his like garage studio and try to come up with ideas and new songs. And it wasn't very productive because we weren't really coming up with songs. We were just kind of coming up with like these sort of soundscapes that were really fun, but I mean, of no use to anyone, you know? And then one day at my job, at a legit job at the time, I get a phone call and I answer it and it's from Teddy. And I'm like, hello? And Teddy says, Winthorpe. And I say, great. I love it. What is it? And he says, I think that's the name for what we've been playing. And I'm like, that's perfect. I love it. So that's what we called it. And then we just did that for a while. So we have some recordings, a bunch of recordings where it was just the two of us. We started calling it Winthorpe. And then Carl comes over one day, and if I remember this right, I think we were supposed to work on music. Like it wasn't any of our music. If I remember, I think Carl was at the studio to overdub music for somebody else. And we were all like, we don't really feel like working on this right now. And Teddy says, well, would you like to Winthorpe with us? And Carl's like, yes, what is it? And so we explain, and he says, that sounds amazing. It's like a garage band for guys who outgrew garages, or it's just fun, you know, like you did back in high school. He says, this is so great. I'll bring my pedal steel. And we were like, oh, you know how to play pedal steel? And he says, no. And we're like, that's perfect. And so the first Winthorpe was born, and then that's how it all started. And then, so we have a bunch of them with like these great players, you know, but it's just, it's been a long time. We've thrown out the Winthorpe signal a couple of times, but COVID made it a little harder to get down to Nashville and sort of fell out of touch with most people. But that was the idea. And now, by the way, Carl's a fantastic pedal steel player now, you know, but the idea of just like, let's just play. You will own an instrument and you can bring it. And this is the time where we're going to figure out how to do it with other people. And it was good, and it was really cathartic, and it was fun. It's always fun to have like a real safe space to play music with friends, like in a jam situation. But it's not a jam. Like you're all trust each other, and you're making songs, and it's fun. So that's how Winthorpe got started.
In my former world, an Irish session. Yeah. You know, you go down to the pub on a Sunday afternoon, and everybody brings their instrument, whether they can play or not.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like that, but it's like the country club version of that, where someone's at the door going like, all right, is this guy gonna be good? and then we invite them in. But yeah, I mean, we've had some pretty fun guests over the years, you know? So yeah. Now that I say that, I'm gonna email everybody. I'm like, we gotta do this again, because now we talked about it on a radio show. It's gonna be famous.
Now in my head, in my head, I envision you pairing it with and making videos for Winthorpe, the songs
You
that
know,
you've
I might
created.
have done that. Yeah, I mean, the problem is like these songs are like 26 minutes long, so it's hard to
Yeah.
edit anything that's that
Okay,
long.
that's
I
fair.
mean, that's it's very the idea at one time was like we'll cut all these down and we'll make songs out of them, and it turns out it's just way more fun to listen to the whole thing and just go, that was a ridiculous night, um, and just leave it there in the air till the next time, you know. But yeah, it's fun times. Yeah, it's fun thinking about that again. Yeah, that's my favorite music. My favorite music was Winthorpe.
That's
And
a
so my
great.
second favorite music is anything at all that like partially encapsulates the spirit of that, which is, you know, it's easier
Well,
said than done. But,
that was going to be my question: is are there ways to encapsulate that into the different things that you do? Because it sounds like a great creative process.
well, yeah, but I mean,
I mean,
yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
I know.
of course there is. You know, the thing, uh, the thing that was that was really fun. I keep wanting to say Winthorpe like in the present tense, like it's still happening, but really, like it's been a very long time.
That, but do it in
But
present tense. That's a very positive approach.
yeah, exactly, exactly. It lives on forever in my head. But I'll say that the really fun thing about Winthorpe is that it was like jams, but it wasn't like a jam band. Like none of us were noodling around for hours because I don't know if it's fair to say for the other guys, but like I hate that. I don't like jam scenarios where one guy's like keeping time and then the other guy's like, you know, it's not for me. So the fun thing about Winthorpe was that it was like a lot of soundscapey stuff, but everyone was trying to come up with something that would be a song in its own right. So it was definitely like a search for something tangible, right? And so maybe it would be like 6 minutes of elephant noises, but then somebody would come in with a riff or a drum groove, and then we would all latch on to that and then do our best to support that and make that song blossom into an actual standalone piece of music. That's kind of what made it real special. And then that would become a thing, and then somebody would inevitably destroy it on purpose, and then we would tumble back down to the beginning and then look for something again, right? And we would do that until tape ran, because we were recording all of this. So either tape would run out and then we would be done, or when we started doing it on Pro Tools on hard drives, we had a lot more time to play. So these things got a lot longer. But anyway, so these days, it's it's like the bizarro version of that, because a lot of times what you're doing is for me as a side person is you're contributing to a song that's already been constructed. The song is already there, and what you're doing is you're trying to support it the best you can and play music with it the best you can. And if you are given the latitude to slowly disassemble that song until maybe the parts which are a little more inspiring that night, whatever it could be, you know. So maybe one night there's a beautiful ballad that sounds really gorgeous if it's broken down in volume and in instrumentation. And so the idea, it's like Winthorpe in reverse. You're starting with the song and then you're trying to get down to that base level so that you can bring it up again. And that doesn't happen a lot. And it doesn't happen a lot, not because it's bad or super hard. It's just honestly, it's like, it's not really called for a lot of times in the genres that I usually work in. But there's usually like a little bit of freedom every night to do that a little bit. So it's good. It's like Winthorpe is like boot camp for real world musicianship. And so maybe you don't do exactly what you did, but you know, that kind of playing like helps your ears and helps you come up with ideas and practice things you didn't practice. And, you know, so
Do
yeah,
you
there's like a parallel.
I was gonna say, does it help you sink in better with musicians just because you are, I don't know, because you don't really have a plan or they don't have a feeling or whatever. You're just kind of creating it together, so it kind of pulls you more together, or is that not fair to say? Because I know you're into the feeling
Yeah,
usually.
well, I think that is fair to say, but I think in like the present tense in these situations I'm in now, I think if you're playing music with anyone and you have a group of musicians who all have trust in each other and they all can listen very well, that's what helps you sink in. And the basics, like knowing the song and being able to play your instrument. But past that point, those two things are what help people sink in, I think. And and that you get from experience by doing silly things like Winthorpe, or just playing with a lot of people, or just knowing your instrument really well, you know. So the thing is the more you know a band and the more trust you can place in them, and the more trust that you um, feel the artist places in you, the royal you,
Mhm.
um, then the easier it is to take those chances when you're playing with someone, to do that sort of thing, you know. If the artist doesn't have trust in you and is just kind of relying on you to play a part, which isn't necessarily bad, it just means um, my biggest job would be to play the part, right? Like I don't want to go somewhere if the artist isn't going to feel comfortable that I can do it tastefully. Or if just speaking for myself, if I'm playing with a band who um, who all knows the song, but I don't necessarily trust them yet. Not in a bad way, but you know, maybe I don't know what their instincts are, or I don't know if they all want to hear the song a certain way. Then I wouldn't be inclined to do that to anyone's song. You know, everyone kind of has to have the understanding that this is okay. No one's in this selfishly. We're gonna support this the best we can, and if we're gonna take it somewhere organic, we're gonna do it knowing that we're all in. You know, that kind of thing.
Well, and I'm making the assumption, and I'm asking in case I'm wrong, that generally you're flying without a net. You're playing live to an audience.
Mm-hmm.
You're not,
Yeah, yeah, that's
especially for people who don't see you as often as we do on stage. You're
sure.
not in someone's garage or in someone's studio. You are
No,
on.
yeah.
You're on.
Well, in the studio, like I'll take a lot more chances because
And that's
it's
kind
the
of
studio.
yeah.
Yeah, but no, yeah. I mean in performing live, you know. Um, because of that, because it's live and there it is, and I think we talked about this last time. There's
Yeah.
a pretty good chance whatever you're doing is going to be recorded for posterity.
That's right.
So there's that's what I mean. Like in a studio situation, if I feel that we're not up against a time constraint or a budget constraint, I'll take 1,000 more chances because I usually am given the latitude to do so.
Yeah.
You know. But in a live situation is what I'm talking about. That's when like you got to have a lot of trust in everyone to know like we're not going to fuck this up, right? We're not going to make this a bad situation. and in a live situation, especially if you're like me, I mean like me, meaning a side person, right? Somebody hired to play with someone. If it's not somebody I have a long history with, then you don't want to do anything that's going to have the artist feel uncomfortable on stage standing in front of everyone, right? That's just the worst. So for live situations, that's what I'm referring to.
Can you think of some times where you've just really been in the groove, and it's just even maybe it's with a band you don't know as well, and you're like, oh man, glad I did that. You know, where you take a chance to go. You know what I mean?
No, I'm like way too self-critical for that. No, that's not true. That's not true. Yeah, I want to say that most nights I feel pretty good, you know? Um,
I'm just
yeah,
giving
I
you an
mean, I can't
opportunity for a
really.
standout memory.
Well, I mean, I, I'll tell you. Let me give you a for instance. I'll give you a good for instance. Was just last weekend in Bemidji. I played in the historic Chief Theater in Bemidji, Minnesota. Kari Hedlund from Northern Community Radio put that together, and the bill was Eric Koskinen and Jeffrey Folkel, who's is a double bill. So if you don't know any of these guys, I mean, you know these people, but anyone listening, Eric is a brilliant singer-songwriter I play with here in Minneapolis. And Jeff Folkel is just an amazing songwriter who originally from Wisconsin, and then he spent a lot of time on the East Coast, and he's just brilliant. And the Jeff's band played together for a very long time, and Jeff's very good friend, a drummer, just a I never knew him personally, but I know from people that he was just a fantastic human being. And so Jeff's longtime friend and longtime drummer, Billy Conway, recently passed away. And so this was one of the very first runs of shows that they did without a drummer, right? And so every night was heavy. It was a really heavy
Yeah.
thing, but also just like uplifting in a way. So you just see it on stage. You know what I mean? You could feel it on stage. It was emotional, like in the best ways. And so anyway, this run of shows has been Jeff's band without Billy, and then Eric has been opening some of the shows and then joining them on stage as a second guitar player. This Bemidji show we played was a double bill, so it was Eric's full band. So that's Eric and myself. Rob Morgan was playing bass. Paul Bergen was on guitar, and that was the full band. And then Jeff's band played. And at the end of the night, both bands got up to play some songs together, right? And the interesting thing is like I don't know Billy personally, right? But you don't have to be able to listen to those songs as they were played earlier that night to know that like his presence is there on stage with the rest of this band. They're going through that loss. They're going through that motion. They're playing all these songs where they all hear like this invisible drummer in their head, right? Playing along with them, and you can hear that, and it's beautiful and it's breathtaking, and so at the end of the night, when we're playing songs together, we're all there on stage, and I'm playing drums now, right? And I don't remember exactly what song we did. It was a Greg Brown song that I'm thinking of. It's a beautiful number. Jeff sings the shit out of it. The, the band is just great. I'm playing drums. I don't know if you're going to use this photo, but you asked earlier if I had a photo to send, and I sent you. There's one of me playing. That's the song. This is the song I'm talking about. Was that song? So I'm playing drums. You see everybody on the stage. Rob, the bass player, who's a great photographer, he was not playing bass so he was running around taking photos. So that's how we snagged the photo. So anyway, if you see the photo, it's this song I'm talking about. We're playing this Greg Brown song. The band is beautiful. It's a very touching ballad. It's very soft. It's a gentle song. It has moments where you can grab onto some things and get it out there a little stronger, and And so those times we did, like I did, and we did, and we all did it. It was one of those, like, it was a really great night. It was a great moment. But the thing that made it so incredible was not only, like, the song was beautiful, and all these things were just like coming together. Like, nobody had a bad idea. Do you know what I mean? Like, everything somebody played was supportive in this whole moment. And then to play drums behind that and help elevate those moments. Until we played the song, we had played it once before at an earlier show, but I've never heard the song before. If I have, I don't remember it. So it's just me reacting to how I think the song has to go. And we get to this part where musically it comes down a little bit, and I know it can get somewhere, and I want to see it get there. I just do. Like, I really want to see it get there. So I do it. Like, I play a fill. This is so dumb. This is we're talking about drums, right?
No.
Okay, but what I'm saying is I get in there and I do it. Like, it's a moment where it's like, it's getting real gentle, but I'm trying to push the band somewhere else. And of course, because they all have humongous ears and they're so great, they totally take it there, and they do this thing. And Jeff turns back at me. He's got the biggest grin on his face. And it wasn't so much a grin like, hey, like, great fill, right? You could just tell it was like, it was such a moment, because the entire time I'm playing, like, I'm playing in the ghost of this other drummer's shadow, right? But not in a bad way, just like in the most beautiful way. And it's to be able to support a band and try to do that, and at the same time say, like, what we're all feeling is so real, and what we can feel will also be very real, and let's try to do that. And then to do it, and then to come, all of those moments, like, come together, and they don't always do that. They don't always come together, but I feel that night it really came together, and it was gorgeous, and it was just a beautiful moment, you know. And the thing about moments like those, because the question was, like, if there was any moment where I felt like I was on. I don't really think like, oh, I was on, but it was just one of these things where, when everyone is talking the same language, and when everyone is trying to say the same things, and everyone has a slightly different vocabulary, so we're all chiming in the best we can. When all of that works, what you create is way more special than the sum of its parts. And that's when I feel really good about music. When I can contribute to anything that comes even close to that, that's a night that I walk away feeling like I feel really good, you know. It's very rarely about I nailed that fill, or I really killed that one section. You know, it's very rarely about that. I mean, I was about to say I've never been that kind of drummer. That's not true. A lot of times I'm definitely that drummer, even now. But for the most part, like, those longer lasting, I really remember those moments as being good. It was moments like that do it for me. So, yeah.
I was going to say, I remember from when we talked before, and now from your answer, I love what music gives to you also, just the feeling and the connection, and like you were just saying, that beautiful moment to share with others. Even and through the pandemic, I mean, I realized before, but it's truer now, like, the feeling of just sounds rather than, you know, I always connected with lyrics more before, but now I hear it so much differently, or I'm more in touch with how it makes me feel rather than what is being said or whatever. But I don't know, it just makes me so excited that you get that, and that for you as a bandmate and a member and somebody doing this as a job, even though I think you like your job better than maybe I do. But I don't know. I adore hearing that.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know why anyone would do this if they didn't feel that way about music, at least not long term. Yeah, everyone's got a thing. My, I've been, uh, say that, Pat, that's not true. I still am. Like, I'm remarkably bad at communicating in most ways. I mean, I love talking. Um, and emails I'm pretty good at because I can revise as necessary. But I feel that with music, maybe I don't have all of the technical skill that I want, but I've always been able to communicate my best through it. And maybe that's why I love it so much. I mean, I can't explain a lot of things in this universe and and why it's so important to me. I don't know, but it's weird to make a job out of it because sometimes there's definite job gigs where you show up and you're like, all right, let's just get this over with. Let's get 10 songs, you're just counting down. Lots of moments like that too. It's not all ghosts of other people and spiritual moments. There's lots out there. But we all live, right, for those things that we can grab out of whatever it is, that it is a beautiful book or movie or art you create or music or your kids or what have you. So yeah, I appreciate you for saying that. Thanks. Yeah.
It's funny because I was tempted to say it's like the music took over, but that's not it at all. You kind of took the music over. It's more like becoming one with the music with the rest of the band.
Oh, on that show itself?
On the show.
Yeah. I don't think I'm trying to think if there's been a time. I don't think I've ever played a show where it's like the music became its own thing. I think that the real joy of it has always been you're trying to find that connection. You know what I can do? I can sum it up. I can sum up the whole thing for you. There's an author named James Baldwin, who I'm sure you guys know, who's phenomenal. And a gazillion years ago, I read this short story that he wrote called Sonny's Blues, which I highly recommend everyone reads, in a collection of his. And there was a quote in there that I loved so much. I mean, like embarrassing, like I wrote it on the backs of notebooks and things. You know what I mean? The total high school thing, like right there with all my Pink Floyd lyrics. But the quote was spectacular, and I think it's very true. So the thing about the story is Sonny is a piano player who had a big heroin problem, and he went to jail, and he gets out, and he's struggling real hard to get back on things. And then he has a show. He has a gig. He's a jazz piano player, and he's playing, and the narrator, I believe, is his brother, who's watching this show, and he says this. He says, "All I know about music is that most people rarely, never hear it. But the musician who creates the music is hearing something else. He's hearing the roar rising from the void and the imposing order on it as it hits the air." And then there's much, much more to that quote. But that's how I think about those moments. It's just all you're doing is you're faced with this deafening silence, and what you do fills up that space, and you can't do it with a bunch of other musicians without having that help from those other musicians, and building something that's tangible in that space it's that action which is so magical, right? It's that approach. And so if you have those moments like with Jeff and Eric and Dan, where you have that space, and the space is heavy. It's a heavy space because it's filled with the expectation of the audience, and it's filled with the expectation of the musicians, and it's filled with like so many memories of this man who meant so much to everyone, and it's filled with like pre-existing music as it would have been played, and all of that is in the silence, and then what you're building as musicians becomes that new space. So it's very much an active process, filling up that space with music. So yeah, I don't think I would ever say like the music took over, or it was a spiritual thing that happened all on its own, because I really think that what makes those things beautiful are is the contribution by every musician who's working very, very hard to do something meaningful with that space, you know? I mean, even in the genres that I play, which is funny, because if you talk to a jazz musician who plays this every night, like they're doing this on a much more intensive level every night. You know what I mean? Especially if they're mostly improv. And what I'm doing is working within boundaries of songs that have already been established, which is a very interestingly different creative process, you know. But yeah, you know, it's work. It's hard work, and it's active, and I love it. So.
I used to interview
Man,
a
we
lot
got
of.
deep again. We went
Huh?
straight to deep right away.
I know.
We're in deep. This is like the last
I
time.
like deep.
I don't know.
I
You gotta
like
think about, is there a lighter question?
I'm not complaining. Listen, I could talk deep about music. Like, it would take days to get me to shut up. It's so yeah, I'm not complaining. I thought it was like funny. Like, damn, we got right in there again. So.
Anne, were you asking
Go
something? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, this one isn't deep. It's just based on a little bit of what we were talking about, of people no longer being here. And as somebody that had a ticket to go to Foo Fighters, and now, you know, it's different or whatever. Is there a band that's on your list that now you're like, I'm going to see them when they come through, be able to see them based on whatever, you know, whatever. Because I was always like, oh, yeah. And then I get a, you know, ticket, and I'm like, oh, yep.
Yeah.
That's another one that I'm going to be sad.
Right. Not really. I should. I mean, I remember being 18 and like going to see the Rolling Stones and going like, we got to go see the Rolling Stones because they're going to die any minute now. And that was 25 freaking years ago. So it's, I mean, Charlie's gone. But, you know, no, I mean, I don't, I've never really been that way, I guess. I mean, no, you know, but that has less to do with music and just more with my very weird personality, you know. I mean, I respect all these bands, everyone who I love who plays. I just don't really think of it. You know, my life is constant optimism. It's just assuming everyone I love is going to live forever, and so.
Well, yeah, I don't want you to think like they're going to be gone, but like somebody you're like, I want to see them play. Yeah.
No, I can't say that. I can't. I mean, I know people, like a lot of people were like, we got to go see Dylan. What if this is his last tour, or, you know, or I'm sure like with the death of Taylor Hawkins, I'm sure so many Foo Fighter fans who, you know, are heartbroken, not only to lose this guy, but just never got the chance to see them.
Yeah.
No, I never have, you know. Yeah. I mean, there's so many bands out there who have died before I was born who I appreciate, and it's never like diminished my respect and love for their music, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
often do you get to just see music, or is that like a busman's holiday? My brother was a
Yeah.
chef. Never ask him where to eat because he was working every night. You know.
Yeah. That's kind of it. I mean, I have so many of my friends who are doing such good things, and it's like the night I get off, it's like the last thing I want to do is go into another club, you know. And plus, let's be honest, like I got 2 kids at home now,
Yeah.
so it's like most of these shows are way past my bedtime. So, but yeah, it is tough. I don't really get to see a whole lot of shows these days, you know. God, I can count on like one hand the amount of shows I've seen in the last couple of years. I mean, pandemic. So
Well, yeah.
keep it out there. Yeah, yeah. No, yeah. I mean, which is there are like so many good bands doing stuff right now, and I mean, I'm lucky too because some of them I get to see like while I'm working, like in a festival situation or something, and so I get to walk around and see a bunch of bands that I normally wouldn't have, you know. But yeah, I mean, when I'm not working, I like to stay out of the clubs if I can, you know. And the other thing too is like you want to know this by how much I've found myself being able to talk while being interviewed, but I'm pretty socially awkward. I think like I'm definitely that guy who like has to force myself to go to a show because I kind of dread the hanging out and talk, my friends, but I still hate it. Like in my mind, I'm just like, what am I going to talk? I don't want to talk to anyone. If I was like guaranteed a seat where I could go in and not talk to anyone and then like watch the show and then leave, I would love that. It'd be embarrassing, but I would love it. You know? And the other thing that I got to say is that one of my biggest pet peeves in the world is people who talk at shows. Not like a big loud rock show, but like if you're kind of a listening room, quiet situation, and someone is going, like it drives me crazy. And so it never fails when I see a show. Yeah,
I'm a shisher. Yeah.
Because I don't go out a whole lot, so I see all these friends of mine, and everyone wants to talk like during the show, and I have not yet figured out a polite way to say like no, but after the show. So I just skip it all together. Just don't go out to any shows. That's not all entirely true, but it's mostly true. It's surprisingly true.
There's a reason that I like to stand right up by the stage because I don't necessarily want to engage with people. It's very fun, you know, because then I don't know what's going on behind me, and I'm not super friendly. I mean, yeah. No.
But I'm also, I can be pretty social like at shows that I'm playing, and for me that like recharges a battery, which takes a little while to drain, you know. So if I play a show and I just saw like 35 people that I had conversations with, I'm not exactly like dying to go out the next night, you know. So yeah, but yeah,
Had enough.
Shoot, exactly. But goddamn, there are so many friends who are making good music. I'm not saying like my way is in any way right, because if I was a decent person, I'd be going out and supporting everybody. But you know, I gotta trust that we all have our own crews who are supporting our music, so that we don't all have to worry about supporting each other's music, you know.
And my kids are at least 10 years older than yours. There was a time that I did not go out. You know, there's a time, there's a season for every.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Early morning comes pretty early. Mine comes later than most, but.
Well, I'm gonna pivot because I'm looking at how long we've been talking and ask you, kind of combine the last 2 topics. Is there music that you know that you would love to have your children be able to come see that you play?
Oh, that I'm playing?
Yeah.
Yeah, but for the most part, they're pretty bored with all the stuff I do.
Well, that's why I'm asking. Because I know kids. Until you join the Wiggles or whatever the version of the Wiggles is now.
Yeah. You know, the one show that I remember my kid, I only had one at the time. My son was really into a play that I did a couple of years ago at the Jungle Theater. Chris Koza was in it, and super great cast. And the name of the play is completely escaping me. I did it for so long. You'd think I'd remember it. Fly by Night
Oh.
is the name of the play. And man, he loved that. And so my wife and kid must have been to like 5 of those shows, you know. And my son loves, he loves Eric Koskinen, loves him to death. So he would totally watch that all the time. He has favorites. I think all my kids have favorites of songs that I'm working on because I'll play them at home and they'll just dance like crazy to them and they always want to hear them, you know. But actual shows they don't like. It's like it's too loud, it's too late, it's too uncomfortable, you know, the whole thing. And I'm like, I get it. I feel the same way. But here I am. I'm doing it, you know. Yeah. There's some stuff like I wish they could have seen. Like it would have been fun for Lucas to maybe see like Wits when I used to do Wits. You know,
Oh,
it was a
yeah.
really fun time. So he probably would have gotten a kick out of that. You know, some other rock shows here.
I was gonna say I want to ask how you got the Kevin Costner because I seen that you have been on a few of his. I was like, how does that work? And are you going to star on Yellowstone anytime soon?
No, but I think I have some drums on Yellowstone and somewhere. You know what? I gotta say, from the first interview, I thought for sure they were going to ask me about Kevin Costner,
No.
and so I was really surprised. The Kevin Costner one is a really long and but I think hilarious story. Do we have time for this?
Yeah.
Are we good?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Kevin Costner. So what happened is my friend Teddy, before we moved to Nashville together, we met in Tucson and we toured together for a really long time playing Teddy's music and learned so much together and just had a great old time. And then we moved to Nashville where he had that house and that garage studio where Winthorpe is now famous from being founded. And thanks to this interview.
Yes.
And so so that's where we will go in a bit. But to start off the whole thing, hundreds of years ago in Los Angeles, I think, lived a kid named Kevin Costner. And he was roommates, I believe, with a kid named John Koyman. And so those guys were, if they weren't roommates, they were buddies, and they were both like aspiring actors / musicians, right, together. And so they had a band together, and they went on auditions, and they did this whole thing. And then their life split up, as it does. And then Kevin Costner went on to become Kevin Costner. And then John Koyman moved to, he ended up in Tucson, Arizona, where he became a really respected songwriter. He's a brilliant songwriter and a great musician, and just had a career of his own doing this. And at some point, my friend Teddy produced a record for John Koyman. So that's the history. So one day, out of the blue, John gets a call, and it's from Kevin. And I wasn't there, but I imagine it went something like this, like, hey, John, it's Kevin. I want to get the band back together. And John's like, really? And Kevin's like, yeah. So they want to get the band back together. That's the whole thing. Like, Kevin's like, it's a little slow for me right now. And I was thinking about all those good times, and I miss playing music, and we should get the band back together. And John says, that's a fantastic idea. So they get the band together. So the band is Kevin Costner with John Koyman's band, okay? Who's, by the way, they're brilliant. They're a great band. And then at some point, they're like, you know what we need? We need another guitar player and someone to help like wrangle this group of dudes. And they call Teddy because Teddy produced John's record and they all got along really well. And of course, Teddy's a brilliant musician. And so that's how Teddy gets involved. So now the Kevin Costner band is Kevin Costner, John Koyman's band, and Teddy Morgan. Okay. We're doing good. Okay. So they get the band back together and they're working on songs, and I'm hanging out with Teddy and he's like, oh, I gotta go. It's Kevin Costner on the phone. I'm like, that's crazy. And our life was a little weird for a while. Now here's the thing, Kevin was not good at the time. I feel safe in saying that. Like, he wasn't good. And again, I don't know Kevin super well, if at all. I've met him. But he's not like superstar, like, well, I'm the best. You know, he's aware of the fact that he needs to practice and he wants to get better and he wants to work on things. So what they do is they think of songs to work on, and then Teddy demos them on guitar, and he makes tracks that Kevin can play along to when he's like hanging out in his trailer in between the downtimes, right? And I play drums on those tracks because we're doing them together in Nashville, where the two of I live. So basically, rehearsing, practicing guitar to songs that Teddy and I are playing on, right? Like, I'm playing drums and Teddy's playing guitar. So for a really long time, my joke was that I was Kevin Costner's rehearsal drummer. Like, that was it. So he's playing along, learning to play guitar with me playing the drums. Okay. Next, Kevin has a movie coming up called Swing Vote. So this came out, would have been early 2000s, I guess. So it's out there, you can see it. And the premise of Swing Vote, or one of the things that happens in Swing Vote, is the character played by Kevin Costner has a scene with a band. And so they're gonna get the Kevin Costner band to do this, which means that they need songs recorded, and it means that one of those songs is gonna end up in the movie. So it's kind of a big deal, right? And so everyone is pitching these songs and everyone's throwing the songs out. And I'm not privy to any of this because, remember, I'm not actually in Kevin's band. I'm just Kevin's rehearsal drummer that he's learning to play music. So this was right around the time I was moving to Minneapolis. So I get a call, and it's from Teddy, and he says, hey, listen, so the band's coming down and we're gonna record this record, and everyone's trying to get the song in a movie. It's a really big deal. And can we rent your drums to set up the session? I'm like, yeah, sure. I don't need them because I'm moving to Minneapolis. I'm not really playing any gigs. So that's what I do. I go down to Sound Emporium B. It's like my favorite drum room in Nashville. And I set up my drums, and we hang out, and I talk to Larry, who's the drummer for John / Kevin. And everything's good. And then I forget about it, and I go back to moving. Okay. This is where it gets weird. So now that I've done all the work, like, that's all the groundwork, and now we're in the good stuff. I get a call a few days later, and by the way, like, I want to say, like, for a long time, this was not good to talk. Like, this was not privy, but I feel like enough time has gone by where this is okay. This is an okay story. I get a call from Teddy, and Teddy says, we have a problem. And I'm like, what's the problem? And the problem is that Kevin has heard all the songs they've recorded, including ones that he's been playing alone in his trailer this whole time. And he doesn't like them. And he's like, I can't understand why I don't like them, but they don't groove as hard. They're not as groovy as these demos that I've been playing along to. And I'm like, oh shit, that is a problem, right? Now I want to say this, like this is no faults on Larry. Larry Cobb is the Modern West, is Kevin Costner Modern West drummer, and he back then too is a great. He's so good. It's not any fault of his drumming. It's just that, like, Teddy and I have been playing for so long. We have such a history together. We knocked out these demos in a matter of days. It's just a feel, you know, that you get, right? And so Kevin was so used to playing these demos that he would hear the real version and go, I don't understand why they don't have that same kind of feel that the demos had. So I'm like, okay, that is a, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? So here's what they're going to do. What they're going to do is they're like, here's what we want you to do. We don't want to fire, you can't fire Larry. And he's so great. And there's only a handful of songs that we're worried about. And not even worried about. It's just, they're trying to make him so that Kevin likes him. You know what I mean? And we don't want you to like replace Larry, but we just want you to play these songs, and then maybe we'll like work some of it in or edit it, or we'll do something. We'll see if that helps the situation. That's the plan. And so I'm like, okay. And so I go to Sound Emporium, where my drums are, because I've just rented them out. And now I'm going to play drums on these like 4 Kevin Costner songs, right? Which I've already played because I played the demos of them. But because I'm replacing Larry, or like kind of replacing him, I actually have to play Larry's parts, because the plan is maybe we'll work these parts in together. So what I'm doing is now I'm playing on my drums, my drum parts as interpreted by another drummer, as then interpreted by myself.
Oh my God.
And so, and to be like completely honest with you, it was tons of fun. It was really, really fun. And so anyway, so the day we did that, they had booked Sound Emporium for like a half day, which I think is like 6 hours. I don't remember what it was. And this whole process like took a matter of hours. So we had all this extra time at the end. And so we're like, well, what do you want to do now? And we were like, hey, we should cut this other song. And the other song is called Backyard. It's a song, it wasn't a Kevin Costner song. It was a song that John and Teddy had wrote together. It was a really cool song. And Teddy and I had a version of it that we had recorded prior. But we had all this extra time. We were in like this beautiful drum room, which just sounds so great. And so we just went for it. We recorded the song, you know, whole thing is like maraca on one hand and then just playing drums with the other. And we played the hell out of that song, and we had such a great time. And we called it a day, and then I forgot about it. And then time goes on, and then I get a call a few months or weeks later, I don't remember. And it's Teddy again, and he says, hey, so we have a problem. And I'm like, well, okay, what's the problem? And turns out Kevin heard that song Backyard and fucking loves it. And he's like, that's the movie song. That's gonna be the movie song. And so now the shit has completely hit the fan, because not only is this like the song that had, you know, but this is just me playing drums, and it's not Larry. And so like the whole house of cards came tumbling down. And I gotta say, like the two things I just want to like really, really stress here, like Kevin, as I understand it, is a very, very loyal guy. Like he would never be like, we got to bring this other drummer in. You know what I mean? And the other side is that Larry is a phenomenal drummer. So it's not even like these weren't good drum parts. It's just for whatever reason, just trying to get a feel that makes the artist happy, right?
He'd been listening to him for weeks. He'd imprinted.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He's been in his trailer, like playing along with these songs. So that's what happened. He heard that song. He's like, this has got to be in the movie song. Everybody was like, oh shit. Larry was furious, as he has a total right to be, for a solid long time, I'm sure, until he realized like he actually played on the rest of the record, and he got to be in the band and make $1 gazillion and have a good time and tour the world. So I'm pretty sure he got over that pretty fast. And then that's how I got it. That's how I did the Kevin Costner thing. So if you watch the movie Swing Vote, which is it's not a great movie. It's not a terrible movie. It's a good airplane movie. There's a scene where you can see the Kevin Costner band playing, except it's me on drums. So I'm not in the movie, obviously, but that's me playing drums. And that song, like, they used it for everything. It was like a NASCAR theme song for a while, and was part of, I don't, it was just popping up in all these different places, you know? Anyway, so since then, since that insane time where I snuck my way onto a movie, after that, it was like, hey, you know what? Actually, it is kind of fun having a wealth of drummers to choose from. So the next album, I played with no weird secrecy involved on a handful of tunes when I was in town, and like every time they put out a record, I had played less and less, you know. And now it's Larry on pretty much everything. But what happens is if I go back to visit Nashville and I hang out with Teddy and we record some music, usually that ends up being used somewhere, you know. So there's a surprising amount of times where it's like, oh, I'm on a new Kevin Costner thing. Cool, that's cool, you know. So that's my story. That's my Kevin.
I love your stories, Richard. I was gonna say you're like the no, I can't, Matthew McConaughey of Audibles. Like you're the drummer that he puts us to sleep. He jacks us up. Whatever. You got it covered with Richard Medek there.
I'd like to think so. I have to say, like, if I will totally FOMO myself and into just being so jealous of everyone else's music career. But I've had some good, fun, like weird moments. Like that, the whole Kevin Costner saga is pretty out there, you know. I mean, he's probably like the biggest name on my resume, which is really weird to think about, you know. But what can I say? It was fun. It was a really fun time, you know. And they're still playing, like Kevin Costner and Modern West. They're still a thing, and the band is still working. And the band is great. It's honestly like it's great, you know. Every musician in that band is a total ringer, and so many in that band are like really great songwriters, and they're all kind of writing, you know. So it's a sleeper of a band for sure, you know. But nice. Anyway, yeah, I have a weird life. Played on a Kevin Costner movie. That's it.
The backstory is surprisingly Shakespearean.
Yeah. I guess there's nothing as weird as like sitting on your own kit and going like, I have to act like I'm someone else acting like they're me acting like they're someone else. But it's me. It's weird to do musically, but it was also pretty fun to try. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. And then we went very deep, and now we end on a high note.
Yeah. But the spiritual thing about playing with Kevin's... No, I'm kidding. We're playing in Swingville. I should.
That sounds like a whole essay, the spiritual side of this swing vote
spiritual
music.
Side.
That's...
Yeah. It's a musical version of Field of Dreams. If you record a set of for Kevin, he'll ask you to play on his record. Yeah.
You're going to see Kevin at Winthorpe, your next Winthorpe session. The special guest.
Maybe he'd be fantastic. I don't know. Maybe he'd be amazing at that. I have no idea. To this day, I'm pretty sure he does not know it was me who played drums on those songs. I'm almost positive. I mean, I still have his cell phone number in my phone. You know, I don't know if it's still the same, but for a long time I was doing a lot of web design. That was like my main gig when music was slow, and so I helped them with their website. So the one time I actually met Kevin face to face, when I introduced myself, I was like, "Hi, I'm your web designer." He's like, "Oh, that's nice." Like, yeah, I should have mentioned the drum thing. He was
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am your drummer and the drummer that played a drummer in your movie.
Yeah.
There is a season.
But,
that was not the season.
not the time. That's all right. That time feels like forever ago too. Mostly because it was. But yeah. But I did end up on there's a couple of drum things that I did which ended up on Yellowstone. So that's a little present tense, you know.
Yeah, you got to call in on Teddy and say, I know how to ride horse. I'll be one of the extras running off there.
That life is not for me. That's not my bag. But I would love to see. We made a habit of visiting whenever we could. The pandemic and the kids sort of slowed things down again, you know. But so I have a Nashville trip overdue. We'll make something happen. Hope.
It's good. And then maybe we'll talk to you again after. You can tell us more stories.
I got so many more stories.
So many more stories. That's how you got into this.
I don't know.
First, in the first place. That's how you got into it.
Yeah, exactly.
But you do have so many mysteries, stories, and they're super fun to hear. Super fun.
Thanks. They're fun to tell.
Yeah.
Just to a new audience, because my wife has heard all these way too many times, and she doesn't need to hear this again.
I understand that. I will include this in the notes, but will you remind folks how they can find you online?
Oh yeah. The best way, I guess, is richardmedek.com or bonesandwire.com, which is my studio that I'm in right now. And that's like the umbrella that I do everything that's not drum related, because I have my finger in a lot of pies right now. But I'm really bad at updating both of those. You know, I'm on Instagram, and that's pretty much it. Yeah. I wish
That's enough.
I should cultivate like a bigger presence. I never do. I go in spurts where I spend months going like, this is the time I'm really going to take my self-promotion seriously and put myself out there and finally get these gigs that I've been dreaming of all this time. And then I realize like that I don't want to do that. Not the gig part. I do want to do the gig part, but most of it feels just so shallow, like the social media part does. And no one really reads websites these days. So it's all kind of a waste of time. But I will say that most people that I've worked with in the last year have gotten in touch with me through my website. So that is something to say. I guess it works, richardmedek.com. I'm one of very few Richard Medeks in the world. So it's easy enough to.
That's good.
To Google, you forget.
Yeah, no, I think when people want to know, the website is a good place, an easy archive.
Yeah. My favorite thing to do on Instagram is like delete most of my things I post. So I think I have like 4 images up there right now that I just keep like curating slowly, you know, as the days go by. Yeah. So, you know, there'll be a kid picture up there every now and then or something.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's
but
funny.
Yeah, I like a self-curated internet presence.
I just let things go forever. You're funny. I'm going to wind this up so I can get this online tonight. Thank you. Richard Medek, thank you. So many fun stories.
Yeah, it was a real pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on again.
Yeah, super good.